Hi, this is Steve Froud. I'm going to show you how to play Kingmaker The Solo Challenge. It's an intriguing puzzle, but be warned, it is designed to be a challenge. Your opponent, called Bot, is intended to push hard against even experienced players of Kingmaker. Still beats me regularly. First things first, the solo rules use classic Kingmaker. If you've not done so, I strongly recommend that you play a game of Classic either against a human opponent or set up a two-player game and play both sides against yourself. The solo challenge rules and this video assume that you know how to play Classic Kingmaker.
Okay, set up and the initial turns. What I will do initially is walk you through the rule book. So we start on page 3. After the first few games, you'll find that if you use the player aids, you can pretty much just run through the game using the player aids. But I'll use the full rule book to take you through this first few turns. Set up the game according to Classic Kingmaker. So we have the royal pieces in their relevant locations. And then there are 4 cards that we will remove because they take no part in the solo game.
Remove the city cards London, Norwich and York. Keep the Bristol one. And remove the crown card Chamberlain of the County Palatine of Chester. This one was removed during play testing as there were a number of standoffs across the Welsh border. Now we deal player 18 cards. And we sort them. What we're looking for is that we can award at least 2 offices to player. So we need 2 nobles, 2 titles, and 2 offices. Yes, we can see there are 2 titled nobles and at least 2 office cards. So now we're looking to see if any cards need to go into Chancery.
So what player has here is an excess of 3 titled cards and only 2 untitled nobles. So one of these must go to Chancery. Let's lose the Earl of Essex. And as a balancer in the solo game, you take a replacement card. Oh, well, that's no good because that's also a title. So we'll just put that to one side. Take a different card. It is the Chancellor of the Duchy of Cornwall. He'll be very pleased with that. Now I'm going to then award these cards according to the rules of Classic Kingmaker. And I'm not going to talk you through that because you know how to play Classic Kingmaker.
So some explanation while I put players' pieces on the board. From their home castles, Stafford, Hastings and Clifford can reach both York and London on turn 2. So I've given them as many troops as I can so they can go to whichever one that Bot does not choose and thereby gain a senior royal peace. Courtenay, however, down here in Devon is just really out on a limb, so I've given him a ship so he can escape if necessary.
So that's players set up complete. We now move on. We're on page 3 still. Bots set up and first turn. And first thing we do is deal out 18 cards to Bot.
While I am doing this, I will mention that I am giving Bot 18 cards, but we would give Bot 1 less if player had given Bot either the Archbishop of York or the Constable of the Tower of London during player's setup.
So now we're going to sort through Bot's cards and we're just going to make sure, as we did with player, but this time we need to make sure that Bot is able to allocate at least 3 offices. And also, if something goes off into the chancery, bot will also receive compensation with a new card. Wow. At last, offices. Lots of nice juicy nobles. Oh, okay. So now what we move to is selecting a target and awarding crown cards. Bot has only got 2 offices. So then what we do is we work our way through the crown deck until we turn over an office. Oh, give that to bot. They just get put to one side for now. And then we pick up all the cards that aren't nobles or titles or offices. And we randomly select one of these. And that is out of the game. Okay. So now we're going to award the cards to the bot, and I will talk you through that. So working our way down the rules, we are on bot's first turn. Event phase does not occur on bot turn 1, so we can flick over onto page 4. Where after some general rules we move into the movement phase. Now first thing is reveal cards from bot's hand. Bot doesn't have a hand yet, and moves forward into target selection. So the best target for bot this turn. What we do is we move and have a look at the target selection bot player aid, and there are a number of targets available to bot, and the first one is not applicable to the first turn. So target selection bot player aid, anything with an asterisk is not used on the first turn, so we can skip these first 2. The third one is take control of a single crowned piece. Well, the only crowned piece at the moment is Henry of Lancaster, and so is that a possible target? And we work our way down through the criteria for selecting a target. Back to page 4. Can bot reach the potential target? So can any of bot's nobles actually get to Henry in London? And the answer is no. Okay. I love this game. So moving on then down the target selection list. Number 3 is take control of the single crown piece. No, we can't do that. Number 4, take control of the senior royal piece of a house on the mainland of England. So that would be Richard of York. We know he can't get to Henry. So again, work our way down, page 4, target selection. Can a bot noble reach this potential target? Well, clearly Neville's going to be able to get to York. And does bot have the appropriate card? Yes, bot has the Archbishop of York. So bot actually controls York and will be able to go in there and collect him. Does bot have enough troops for combat? Not required, because he owns York. Is this move too risky? So in order to work out whether this is too risky for bot, we need to know which nobles can actually get to York and with what force. So De Vere starts down here, he's not going to make it. Percy starts at either of these 2. Again, he can't reach York in 1 turn. And Stanley starts over on the Isle of Man, also is not going to be able to make it. So these are the 3 nobles who can reach York. Neville can get from here, Cromwell from here, and Roos up from here. Okay, and just arbitrarily handing out cards for now. It's going to have to go to one of the other nobles. Okay, so if we look at the total strength that we are going to be able to get in the York area, It's going to be 100, 180, 190, 210, 230, 260, and I strongly advise that you keep a running total of both sides troops. That's actually players' troops, and that says that we have 90 with Hastings, who can get to York, and 90 with Clifford, who can get to York. So 180, fewer than the number of troops Bot can get there. So Bot considers that to be an acceptable risk.
The risk is acceptable because Bot is not initiating combat with all the risks that incurs, and player, in player's next turn, cannot get more troops to the area containing York with more troops than Bot can get there now.
Has a target been selected? Yes. Moving on to take control of accessible royal piece. I know that this won't apply for the first turn, so we can skip that step. Turn the page. We're now on page 6. Top of page 6. Put nobles into play and award crown cards. So that's what we're going to be doing now. You need the awarding crown cards Bot player aid. And basically you work down the aid. On turn 1, just to watch out for Stanley, you don't want to give him more troops than he can fit on his ship. So there's a warning to make sure you don't do that. Then you just work down the 9 points. Noble moving to take control of an accessible royal piece. Don't need to worry about that. It's not happening on the first turn. Second point, titles. Award the title with the most troops to the noble currently with the most troops who doesn't have one. Well, that's going to be Roos. Gets that title. Okay, and then moving on to the offices. We don't have the Constable of the Tower of London. We don't have the Chancellor of England. So then we hand them out to the Bot noble with the most troops who can reach the target. So Roos and Neville tie. So it goes to the one that has the lowest calls to events. That's a tie. So 1, 2, 3 are with Neville. The cards, again looking at the cards, starting with the one with the lowest number of events. So these are tied. So again 1, 2, 3. So the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster goes to Roos. Dover Castle goes to Neville. And the Warden of the Northern Marches love to go to Cromwell, but he doesn't have a title. So it comes down to here. So the nearest noble to York is going to be Percy, who will pick up the Warden of the Northern Marches. Now we move down the list after offices and we come to a definition of key nobles. So now you identify the 3 nobles that are able to reach the target and they will receive the rest of the cards. Starting initially with the mercenaries. Now you allocate out mercenaries in an attempt to even up the number of troops. So in this particular case, poor little Cromwell is going to get all the mercenaries to try and boost him a little bit. And we move on to archbishops. Archbishop of York goes to the noble with the most troops. These are the same. The one that's called to the least number of events, they're both called to 2. So again, 1, 2, 3, it goes to Neville. We don't have any bishops to hand out. We do have some towns. Same criteria. The noble with the most troops. These 2 are tied. Roos is now called to least events. So he gets the first town card. And then you add town cards to the noble with the same criteria, but the noble with the least number of town cards. So the next one's going to go there. The third one's going to go there. And again, this will go back to Roos since he has priority. That's the town cards. Then for ships, exactly the same. Would be the noble with the most troops, called to the least events, and that remains Roos. So now we have awarded crown cards. You will never have to do anything as complicated as that again later in the game. You normally have maybe 4 cards to hand out, and it will only happen on average about every 4 to 5 turns.
So now, having awarded all the crown cards, we can mark up all the possessions under Bot's control and place his ships. So that's it. We've got player set up. We've got Bot set up in this wonderful arc of Bot nobles centered around York, with 3 of them ready to pounce on Richard of York. And we have 3 powerful player nobles dominating central England. And there's poor old players Courtenay stuck down in Devon, and Bot's Stanley on his little island. Let's move to the movement phase.
So now that everybody's been awarded their cards, we can actually move again. We work our way, we're on page 6 of the rules, we work our way just sequentially through the rule book. They're written so you can just move through them. The first section is to move to the target. So we know that Neville, they've now no longer in the fortification, and Roos and Cromwell can all arrive at York. Then we would move the Bot stack currently with the highest troop strength if it hasn't moved. Well, the stack with the highest troop strength is currently here, and those nobles have moved, so that's the end of that one. And then we move titled and untitled nobles that can reach the stack with the highest strength to them. Well, they're all there, the others cannot reach. Then we move remaining untitled Bot nobles on land. We only have one untitled noble, Stanley, and he can't move on land. So then we move titled Bot nobles on land. Now, the thing about untitled Bot nobles moving on land is they ignore the presence of any of players' nobles. But titled nobles are a little bit more cautious, and they will not move into an area at risk. So, De Vere, there is no route through to the stack with the highest number of Bot troops without going to an area that is at risk. So basically, De Vere only has 30 troops. These guys have more, and they are blocking central England. So De Vere will not actually attempt to go in that direction. He could, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he could actually stay where he is, or he could move away. But because Bot has a ship and De Vere can reach a port that is not at risk from a player noble coming to attack him, De Vere can actually move to Malden, and the ship of Berwick will come down ready to pick him up. Now, when Bot ships move, they will never put themselves in a location where they could only land at a port that player controls. So, for example, this ship would never go here, because if there were storms at the sea, it would get trapped in that port. However, with Malden being unfortified, then the Swan of Berwick is perfectly comfortable going there, or the captain is perfectly comfortable going there. Next up is sea movement, and we've done seek sea transport. So Stanley will now collect ship of Douglas, and he will go to the nearest port that is not at risk, that is closest to this stack here. So although Preston is close to him, it's not close to this stack. Kingston upon Hull is closest, but 1, 2, 3, 4, it could be attacked, so it is at risk. Ravenspur, 1, 2, 3, is also at risk, as is Whitby. Boston is at risk, so the nearest port we're heading towards, it'll either be Caister or it could be Bamber. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's Bamba. So he's actually going to do a circumnavigation here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Quick check. If there are storms at sea, you could go to Milford Haven or Penzance. They're not controlled by player. So again, the captain is perfectly happy to go into those that location at sea. So that is all of Bot's nobles have now, except Percy, have all moved, except for Percy. Percy will move as fast as he can towards York, getting as close as possible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If he has a choice of locations, which he did there, he could have gone to any of those, he will pick the one on a road. So that's all Bot nobles moved.
Combat phase. Bot does not have any combat. However, during the combat phase, Richard of York comes out of York into Bot's stack in the open field here outside the city walls. Bot nobles do not need to go into a fortification to collect a royal piece. Player does. One of those little differences between player and bot. So that's the combat phase. And moving on to the parliament phase, bot cannot call a parliament. Now we reach the coronation phase, and bot will immediately crown Richard of York with the Archbishop of York here in York, and now we have 2 kings of England. Well, that's a very dramatic way of starting the forthcoming Wars of the Roses.
So, with the power struggle well underway, we now reach the end of turn phase for Bot, and we need to give Bot a crown card. Before that, we need to shuffle in all of these cards that were removed and set aside earlier in the game. Give these a good shuffle, and then we will remove a crown card, and without looking at it, give it to Bot. That will be revealed on a subsequent turn. We've now reached the end of Bot's turn and can move on to player's turn. So we move to player's event phase, the first one of the game. Bot doesn't have one on the first turn. We take an event card. Piracy, Fitzalan to Arundel. Fitzalan is not in the game, and in the solo game, if the first event card does not affect anything on the board or are kept by a player, then we draw a second event card. We never draw a third event card, no matter what happens with this one. This is Storms at Sea. Ships take refuge in nearest port. We have a ship at sea with Stanley on board here. Bot ships will in preference always go to an unfortified port in preference to a fortified port. These are equidistant. We get to roll the dice again. 1, 2, 3, Milford Haven. Stanley goes backwards, which is unfortunate, into Milford Haven. So that's player's event phase over. Player will now essentially play a classic Kingmaker turn. It's up to player how they do that. So we'll leave Kingmaker the Solo Challenge here, having done player setup and bot setup and first turn. We have 2 Kings of England. Player, I suspect, will now make a race towards London to try and get control of Henry of Lancaster. Exciting place to leave the game. I hope you've enjoyed the video.
So that's it. Everything you need to get you going. There will shortly be a second video continuing through to turn 4, which will cover some specific situations, such as what if bot doesn't have a target nearby, where empty bot ships move, and a bot parliament. I'm excited by the arrival of my copy of the new game. It arrived the day I finished recording. So like me, enjoy your games of Kingmaker The Solo Challenge.